Some growing debate around Taylor Swift, not about her talent, her success, or her influence. Those are frankly unquestionable. The first is a question of direction, about how pop's most gifted storytellers may have shifted their gaze from telling stories about the world to telling stories only about themselves. And what happens when that shift, from narrator to subject, collides with a billion-dollar brand, a restless fandom, and a changing pop landscape that's moving on without her. Today we break it all down. The artistic shift, the commercialization of fandom, and the cultural disconnect that's quietly reshaping the way audiences see Taylor Swift in 2025. I'm going to make three arguments. First, Taylor Swift has shifted from narrator to narcissist. Less storyteller, more self-story. Second, she is now harnessed to a remorseless capitalism engine running on an economy of small purchases and continuous upgrades. And third, while pop evolves toward raw, unfiltered voices, Taylor is doubling down on spectacle, monetization, and nostalgia for herself. The backlash we're seeing isn't an accident. It's the result of a system engineered to never stop selling. From narrator to narcissist, Taylor Swift's earliest superpower was perspective. She had the ability to take very small, specific moments and make them feel universal. A scarf, a set of bleachers, a refrigerator map, details that build wholly emotional worlds. That's what made her music powerful. All she wasn't singing about was herself. She observed life and turned it into a story, playing the role of the narrator, someone who looked outward before reflecting inward. But it's 10 years at the center of your universe changes how you see. The camera pirouettes inwards, and the world becomes its mirror. Somewhere between 1989 and the Tortured Poets Department, the point at which Taylor Swift stopped being the storyteller and became the story itself. Now, the telling was almost entirely about her. Her reputation, her foes, her image, her very myth. You hear it in the lyrics. Songs built not around experience, but around perception. What people say, what people think, how she's framed online. Even her self-criticism becomes part of the brand. Lines about covert narcissism or public image only reinforce the narrative that she's self-aware, still in control, still performing the persona. The confession goes garb. The apology is issued as a press statement. In that structure, growth isn't personal development, it's campaign messaging. The songs no longer sounded like someone figuring life out. They sounded like a person maintaining a brand identity, a distance that fans can feel. Because the emotion isn't hitting the same way. It's not discovery anymore, it's documentation. Moments that once felt intimate now feel rehearsed. That's the first stage of what people label as narcissism in pop. Act 1, vulnerability. Act 2, invincibility. Act 3, the inability to step off stage. Even as the scene calls for silence, the performance goes on. Every release becomes self-referential. Every lyric becomes decoded for Easter eggs about herself. And when the medium is a mirror, then it will be less reflection about us and more about her. But now, about the business. What fans have more and more taken to calling the Swift economy. Because Taylor Swift isn't just an artist anymore, she's a marketing ecosystem. Her releases are built on layers of limited editions, exclusives, alternate covers, hidden codes, QR drops, vinyl variants, and secret bundles. Just because each cycle is not one album, but 10 different purchase opportunities. On paper, brilliant marketing. In practice, starting to feel like over-extraction. Notably, fans have begun to notice the patterns, the same acoustic takes, alternate versions, demo cuts, or bonus tracks popping up in every which product put out individually. 5 ways of saying the same thing, reworded. That model, small add-ons, micro-exclusives, endless rebuys, comes straight from gaming. You already own the main product, but here's a new skin, a badge, a collectible. Except now, it's not digital armor. It's a colored vinyl, a lyric variant, or a signed CD with one bonus line. That emotional investment that once made her fandom strong has turned into economic investment, fans buying not to listen, but to belong. And increasingly, they're wondering if the bargain is a fair one. Some have begun to say the quiet part out loud. The lines are eroding between artistry and extraction. And when acoustic versions, memo snippets, or AI-style teasers roll out across weeks of rollout, fans feel less like participants and more like customers inside this endless drop cycle. Clever, yes, the hunt for secret codes and collectible covers. But when said prize is a lyric video or reused footage, the illusion starts to crack. It's no longer about discovery, it's about engagement metrics. And at the bottom of it all, there is another checkout link. Even longtime fan accounts have resorted to calling it as it is. This is another monetization model, taking those most loyal followers and telling them it's a privilege to be constantly sold to. And while fans can claim her right to own and sell her art, it's a business reality that's uncomfortable. It's how the Masters saga, her fight to regain control over her recordings, was framed as a moral victory, which, in most ways, it was. But the broader consequences are less in your face. Her solution required hundreds of millions in capital and legal infrastructure that only a billionaire could access. The moral of that story for smaller artists isn't empowerment. It's that ownership still depends on power. In other words, what seems righteous from the penthouse can be felt beyond reach from the sidewalk. Customer pain. The Swift brand runs on narrative control. Every rollout, every Easter egg, every fan clue, every romantic headline. It's all content. It's all story fuel. But such relentless branding has a price, because ultimately, the audience stops waiting for emotional revelation and starts waiting for the next receipt. Affection becomes inventory, and music becomes merchandise. When the culture moves on, here's where reality actually tips over. Whereas Taylor doubles down on control and polish, pop culture has moved on. The best new music out right now is none of those things. It's messy, raw, political, humorous, unfiltered. Artists are recording on cheap mics, dropping voice note vocals, and writing lyrics that are very similar to text messages. There's humor, awkwardness, and realism. Pop is trending to presence, not perfection. And that's exactly where Taylor's current work feels out of step. The production is immaculate, the visuals cinematic, yet the emotion feels contrived. The old school rollout strategy. Bigger drops, bigger stunts, more variants. And the assumption that culture will orbit the brand forever, that's what's breaking down. In 2025, nobody's culture is put into orbit. It crowds, surges, and then moves on. When smaller, newer artists can spark viral moments through authenticity, even the biggest pop star can start to look scripted. And then there is the silence, an avoidance of major issues. Neutrality may have had its strategic plays in 2016. In 2025, it reads as market preservation, while artists like Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, Hozier, and others take stands. Imperfectly but sincerely, Taylor remains mostly silent. That silence feels less like grace and more like caution. The audiences pick it up too, because pop is not just sound, it's a temperature. It tells you where the heat is, or when the biggest star in the world feels disconnected from that temperature, the art feels smaller, no matter how big the numbers are. Then, of course, there's the AI. Fans notice that recent promo materials and teaser clips make heavy use of ugly AI graphics and glitchy effects. And while that's not unusual today, it feels tone-deaf from someone who's built a brand on fighting for artistic control and authenticity. You cannot preach about protection of intellectual property and use generative AI aesthetics to sell new work. It sends mixed messages. Labor solidarity as branding, labor replacement as marketing. The fans can romanticize it, decoding glitches into secret clues, but at some point, the narrative work becomes too exhausting. When fans have to do the storytelling heavy lifting, it's a sign the artist has stopped doing it themselves. Taylor Swift is not over. Financially, she's impregnable. She remains one of the most powerful musicians in the world. But the cultural shield, That force field that once protected her from critique is thinning. We're seeing more mid-tier creators, critics, and even longtime fans being very honest about fatigue. Tone-deaf rollouts, overpriced variants, overused themes, AI-styled gimmicks. What was once dismissed as hater noise now looks a lot like an early warning. The same digital spaces that once treated criticism of Taylor as taboo are now conduits for open disappointments. Even her metrics are reflecting slight tremors-mild follower dips, underwhelmed first-week reactions, and muted enthusiasm. Nothing earth-shattering, but taken together, they create a trend line. Interest shifting, attention drifting. The entertainment machine can't control the narrative anymore. TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube set the scene in real time, and by that time, her team finds out, the conversation has already moved forward. That lag makes empires look confused. It does strange things to billion-dollar brands. And when your fandom has to constantly decode and defend you while getting less genuine art in return, exhaustion sets in. That's how too big to fail gradually turns into too big to care. The 5 beats of a narcissism arc. Now let's deconstruct this cultural pattern because it's not unique to him at all. This is how narcissistic collapse actually takes place in popular culture, step by step. Beat 1. Self-reference replaces storytelling. The I supersedes the we. Beat 2. Monetization crowds the margins. Every project becomes a product line. Beat 3. Culture pivots without you. The new sound, the new voices, the new politics pass you by. Beat 4. Fans rationalize the slip-ups until rationalizing becomes too much work. Beat 5. The audience writes the ending you refuse to write. They shift attention elsewhere. At this very moment, Taylor Swift is somewhere on beat 4 or 5. The defenses are getting exhausted, the receipts keep coming, and the broader discussion, once cowed, sometimes terrified to critique her, becomes honest. Even from people who claim to love her early work. Can Taylor Swift bounce back? Yes, absolutely. But not with more drops, more clues, or more spectacle. It would require actual risk. 3 major pivots. Pivot 1. Turn outward with the camera. Write about one thing that is other than yourself. A stranger, a moment, something in a detail that is not a metaphor for celebrity. Reclaim the narrator voice that made you great in the first place. Pivot 2. Kill the microtransaction era. Publish one standard version. Give the fans acoustic takes for free afterwards. Stop turning emotional connection into product segmentation. You care a bit more about the art than about the margins. Pivot 3. Take an opinion that's expensive. Not a politically safe endorsement, but an authentic action that may just cost you part of your market, yet feels right to your conscience. Because you can't be the biggest and safest artist forever. Reinvention is possible. It's something Taylor's done before, but without the risk, reinvention is rebranding. Pop has always been a mood ring. It reflects the heat in a culture. Right now, that fire belongs to artists who are human, flawed, and fearless. They're messy, they're political, they're funny, they're tired. The future isn't mistake-free rollouts and color-coded vinyls. It's cheap demos, weird bridges, rough edges, and emotional honesty. The more a superstar clings to the old formula, more gloss, more versions, more myth, he risks turning into a museum of himself. People still visit museums. They sell tickets, but nobody leaves whistling the exhibits. Taylor Swift will always be a monumental figure. That's not the question. The question is, will she stay culturally relevant or just commercially dominant? Because the era of automatic cultural dominance is over. People want less breadcrumb hunting and more substance. Less about the life of a showgirl, more about life. They want a billionaire to cease flogging them 8 variants of the same song and to start writing as if he were a person again. Narcissistic collapse is not the end of a career. That's when the mirror doesn't flatter anymore, so to say. The lights are still bright, but the crowd starts to drift toward the door marked new. She can have the room, Taylor Swift. but only if she starts listening once more. Thanks for watching. If that breakdown was valuable to you, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the shifts happening in pop culture, celebrity branding, and the business behind fame. Because sometimes the story behind the star tells us more about the culture than the music ever could.